This is Kevin from heathkitstereo.com, and I'm here today demonstrating quickly the functions on a Heathkit Audioscope, which I just finished reconditioning and am listing for sale on eBay. This particular unit I picked up a few years ago as a spare parts unit for my other two audioscopes, and I decided to totally recondition it and offer it for sale. So good luck to someone. If you're not familiar with it, I'll run you through the controls and functions very quickly here. It's a 3-inch oscilloscope. The CRT I just replaced, the CRT that was in there, had some burn marks on it, and I didn't like that, so I put in a different CRT, which is perfect. And then over here we got basic oscilloscope functions. We've got a coarse speed control for the sweep and a variable speed control. Down here we got the vertical position and gain, the horizontal position and gain, and focus of the beam and the intensity. And up here is the function of the unit itself. We'll go through each of those 8 functions. And then over in this section here is the oscillator, which is really useful in testing a stereo system. So in the oscillator you got a frequency knob, which varies between 20 Hertz, actually just a little bit above 20 Hertz. One of the modifications that I put in was to not allow the oscillator to run below 20 Hertz, because otherwise you can get into amplifiers shutting down on DC voltages and possibly damage your speakers. So it won't run below 20 Hertz, and then up to just a little over 20K. Down here is the level control for the output of the oscillator, which is available both on the front panel as well as on the back panel. In the front here, right at the end, you can see just at the edge of the screen is where the oscilloscope input is. This functions just like the 4 channels in the back, except that it's a lot handier than reaching around in the back. There's a couple banana jacks there, so it just takes a regular dual banana plug if you got one of those. Otherwise test leads work fine, or you can wrap some wires around there. I'll turn up the beam here, and just I want to draw your attention to the beam. Sometimes these are really fuzzy and not clear, but I've again got the circuitry in order, and this one is just really sharp. It's just a very fine beam. It's a joy to work with, and you'll see that in some of the other displays coming up here. One of the modifications that I put in is that there's this little sequence of 8 lights here, selecting what function that you're on. And Heathkit had neon lights in there, which can be hard to find if you got them burnt out. They were kind of flickery, and they're not altogether very bright. And so what I did is I put in multicolored LEDs there for the different functions, which I think are much cooler than the dim orange bulbs that Heathkit had in there. So we got some nice LEDs in there. So we'll start out with the oscilloscope function here. It gives a baseline when there's no signal, and right now I've got the oscilloscope hooked into the oscillator output on the back panel, and I'm going to turn up then the output of the oscillator. If you've never used an oscillator and testing your stereo, it's just invaluable. You will absolutely love this oscillator. It's adjusted for low distortion on the wave there. So as I'm cranking up the frequency of the oscillator there, now backing it down. And you can also adjust then the sweep frequency over here. I'm going to move it down by a factor of going to move it down to 200 from 2K. Which really slows down the sweep. Then you can use the variable control and move it up a bit there. It's auto triggering, so it's just a really nice 3-inch oscilloscope. So the oscillator, like I said, goes all the way up to 20K and down to very low frequencies, about 23 Hertz or so. So really good for testing stereos. There's also all the way down at the bottom here is, if you turn the level control all the way down until it clicks, there's a calibrate position there, which just puts out a 60 Hertz sine wave, and this is coming right off the transformer, not the oscillator itself. So it's not a very pure sine wave, it's just used for calibrating 1 volt peak to peak if you ever need to do that. And moving down in functions here, the multipath function is for tuners that have a vertical and horizontal multipath output. And so I'm feeding that right now from a Heathkit modulus. I think pretty much all Heathkit's tuners had a vertical and horizontal output for a scope such as this, and I imagine that other high-end stereos have them as well. And so what we're seeing here in this little squiggly line here is, as it spreads apart, that signal strength. Let me put on some what it's actually doing there. So it's playing some music there on station. And the height of the bar there that's being displayed is the signal strength, and then the modulation is the width, and how the little line looks there is the distortion that you're looking to adjust there. So I'm going to tune the frequency here so you can see it kind of like a center tune meter moving left and right there. So you want it to be right in the middle there. It works like a center tune. And then I've got my tuner hooked up to a BIC beam box, which works like a directional antenna. So I'm going to flip through the different directions on the beam box here, so you can kind of see it changing as if I'm rotating the antenna. So you want to adjust that for the strongest signal and the least distortion. Sometimes you can't have both, you have to pick one or the other. If you actually got an outside antenna with a rotor, this is really essential for aligning your tuner for the cleanest signals. So that's the multipath there. I'm going to turn that off there so you can hear me better. We'll go now to the 4-channel display, and this doesn't have to be just for 4-channel. You can use it on 2 channels as well, which I'm going to do right now. It starts out with the beam right in the middle here, and then as there's signals in each of the channels, then there's a line that goes out into, like over here we got front left and front right, and that's what I'll be using right now. And then down here is of course the back left and the back right. And then as there's signal information going between the channels, then you get these little fuzzy lines which you'll see in there as well. So I'm going to go back to the radio again here. Okay. And the radio isn't particularly strong, so if it was like a CD, which is louder, you get bigger lines going in there. But it's just a nice little display to display the 4-channel information, or just stereo information as well, with signal strengths and the information between the channels. So kind of a fun little thing there. And then I'm going to go down to the 2-channel display here. And now for this, it helps if you switch into mono mode. So I'm going to change the tuner into mono mode here. So this would be a mono signal where we've just got this diagonal line where you've got one channel hooked up to horizontal, one channel hooked up to vertical, and you get that line there. And so what I'm going to do right now is just to center that line and make sure that it looks pretty good, and adjust the gain there so that it's diagonal. There we go. Okay, then change back into stereo again there. And so if you got a mono signal, you get that diagonal line. If you've got channels that are 90 degrees out of phase, you'll get a circle. And here we're seeing where it's kind of a nice stereo signal, but it's not a whole lot of stereo separation. The rounder and fuzzier the ball is, the better the stereo separation on the 2 channels. And you can, I don't know if you can see that or not here in this resolution, but The beam on the oscilloscope here drawing this fuzzy ball is just very, very fine. So it's just like I said, a joy to use. And then we got, down here we got monitoring each of the channels separately, where you got back left, back right, back left, front right, front left. So I'll change down to the front channels here. And that's pretty much like the oscilloscope display we saw up at the top there. Whereas this is now what's coming on the front right channel. And there's the front left channel. You can of course change the sweep speed if you want to focus in on lower frequencies, or you can speed it up to look at the sweep at the higher frequencies there. So there you have it. That is basically the Heathkit Audioscope. It's working perfectly, and I'll warranty it for 90 days. So good luck to whoever wins.